This episode tells the tragic story about a notorious liar called Noland Mont Blanc, and it tells us his life and death was completely misrepresented. At least that's the way it seems, because in this episode we meet his descendant and he explains a whole lot of what's going on. So essentially, this story is about a guy called Noland who was a notorious liar. He would go around just spreading all sorts of misinformation, and at one point he got himself executed because he dragged a king and a bunch of soldiers to this place where he said there was loads of gold. And when they got there, it was just an empty island, apparently. And when he was getting executed, he said how it sunk to the bottom of the ocean. All of this gold sunk to the bottom of the ocean. And in the fairy tale, it seems it's depicted that he was always smiling, he was pulling these goofy faces. It was obviously made like whoever made that book made it to make him look as bad as possible, as much as a liar as possible. I don't know what the agenda is for that, but according to Cricket, his descendant that we meet in this episode, he was very honest. He was a very honest person and he didn't tell lies. So whoever's done this to him obviously has some sort of agenda against him or his family or something like that, or there's secrets that they don't want uncovered that he was uncovering. There's got to be some sort of conspiracy theory here. But it is tragic because this guy did nothing but tell the truth by the sounds of it. And the Straw Hats even get his logbook after Cricket gives it to them, and they're reading through all these tales during his adventures. And he's been to Sky Island, or he knows of Sky Island at the very least. And, that's what the Straw Hats are here for. But it feels very sad knowing that this man potentially was telling the truth the whole time. And there was some sort of plot against him to execute him, to make his whole bloodline, including him, look like liars. And that's created a huge problem for his great, 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 great grandson, Cricket, who is now on a mission to find the gold that essentially apparently sunk to the bottom of the ocean, where in this fairy tale it doesn't exist. But it's not even necessarily to prove it to his great great granddad, to prove it to Noland. It's basically a battle of him versus Noland, because he's had to deal with all of this infamy for so long. He's been like ostracized by a lot of people his whole life because of this fairy tale. So now it's up to him to sort of prove that it does exist, almost for himself, pretty much, or it doesn't exist. He doesn't care either way, as long as he finds out the truth. Cricket knows Masira and Shoju. In fact, Shoju and Masira are massive fans of the fairy tale, and that's how they originally met. They came to this island and they found Cricket, and they told him how much of a fan of the book they were. And since then, they've sort of been working all together in order to try and find out the truth about this gold. And maybe that's why they're salvages in the first place, Masira and Shoju. Maybe they were salvages beforehand, but maybe the fairy tale inspired them to try and find like stuff at the bottom of the sea. I don't know, but there's definitely some sort of connection there, which explains a lot. There's always reason for why people do things in One Piece. You don't really ever get a character that just does things for the sake of it. There's always some sort of reason, some motivation, some backstory that I think always expands characters and makes them so much more interesting to watch and like discover more about. In the end of the episode, Cricket talks to Masira and Shoju and asks if they can help the Straw Hats get to the Sky Island, because he obviously sees something in them, or Luffy specifically, that he likes. So he wants to assist them in them getting to Skypiea, which is really exciting. But apparently there's only one way to get there, and if they don't get help, then they could potentially die. I don't know what that way is, but the fact that it even does exist, or at least Cricket seems to think so, and he seems like a very honest person, just like potentially his granddad was. That's exciting. So there could be a way for them to get there. And at the very end of the episode, we saw Mihawk, which is terrifying. Mihawk seems to be back, and he seems to be searching for Luffy and Zoro. He had their bounties in his hand. So if Mihawk is after them, this could be really bad. I don't know how far he is, but if if Mihawk's after their heads, things could get dicey. Regardless, I'm excited to uncover more of this mystery. Does the Gold Island really exist? Was Nolan telling the truth? Are we ever going to find out? I'm not too sure, but I can't wait to see. So let's do it.